Put your seatbelts on and get ready for the ride. We're the freaking New York Jets, so we're built for this shit.
Hello, welcome to another episode of In the Trenches with Gang Green. I'm your host, Bubbs. Today is Thursday, July 24th. Hopefully everybody's having a good day so far today. This is episode 578 of the In the Trenches with Gang Green podcast. I thank you, as always, for joining me. For those tuning in on YouTube, make sure to please like and subscribe. Of course, appreciate all of those tuning in on all the different audio podcast platforms. And today we are recapping a wild roller coaster day at day number 2 of New York Jets training camp. The day started, of course, with the Justin Fields injury. As a Jet fan, you fear the worst. So we'll talk about the injury. We'll give you the latest updates. All in all, it is a positive outcome based off of what many of us Jet fans, of course, initial thoughts were. So we'll break that down. And we'll also, of course, discuss some of the other stuff that took place on the practice field, because there still was a practice, of course, that took place today. And I have some takeaways from what took place on the field at One Jets Drive, despite the Justin Fields injury, of course, taking the main story. So with that being said, I wanted to wait a little bit. That's why this episode's coming out a little bit later on here in the day. Practice has been over now for a couple hours. Glenn, players, all that. We'll get to some sound as well, as some players and Glenn met the media. We'll talk about and give some takeaways from that as well. But I wanted to wait until we got an official update on Justin Fields. And just a couple minutes ago, before we started recording here, the official New York Jets Twitter account released this information. Update: after medical evaluation, quarterback Justin Fields sustained a dislocated toe in his right foot and will be day-to-day. Fields avoided serious injury and significant missed time. So that's obviously the best case scenario out of what we originally thought was going to be the case this morning when the initial thoughts enter your mind as a New York Jet fan. Look, obviously, in a perfect world, Fields, this doesn't happen, and he doesn't miss any time. And any missed time for Justin Fields is not what you want to see, obviously. In a perfect world, right, he plays practices in each of these days, and it's important for him learning a new system, building chemistry with these receivers, and ultimately needing to grow and work on a lot of things as he enters, of course, a pivotal year for the Jets in 2025. But just kind of the timeline was just crazy this morning. And it's just another reminder that there's truly never a dull moment as a New York Jet fan. You're following practice, following the reports this morning, and all of a sudden, snap of a finger, you see reports that Fields is down, Fields is hurt. And you see the initial reporting that he got hurt, he sat down, got back up, limped off. And that gave you immediately PTSD of the Aaron Rodgers Achilles injury. And just as a Jet fan, the internal Jet fan inside of you right away this morning is automatically saying to yourself, there's no way this is happening. Like, here we go again. Second practice. For Rodgers, it was 4 snaps in. For Fields, it was second practice of training camp. And you're thinking, done. This is it. It's over. You're already fearing the worst of a possible Achilles, because that's what you do if you're a Jet fan, right? All the things we've been through, you're just sitting there like, how again is this happening to us? What did we do to deserve this? You hear he gets carted off and you immediately fear the worst. Eventually, as more information came out, Glenn revealed at his press conference, that was the first big information, that it was a toe injury. And that right there, of course, the New York Jets dodged a major bullet from what could have been, whether it was an Achilles, whether it was an ACL, right? You feared the worst of a season-ending thing, that you don't see him again. And thankfully here, nothing major. But just another one of these days as a Jet fan where you're just questioning a lot. Like, why is this happening? Second day of training camp. Are you serious? And in that moment where practice is still going on, you still have the unknown, and you're just thinking about what's next, right? You start to have your mind venture. So just a wild day. You get up, looking forward, getting my notes ready, tracking day number 2, and it took a crazy turn, and that's the life of a Jet fan. You truly just never know. And I can't wait to be out there tomorrow. I'll be out at One Jets Drive tomorrow, giving you all my in-person takeaways, so can't wait for that. Super excited. We'll be actually both 2 first practices tomorrow, and I'll also be there on Saturday, so looking forward to that. But that's the field stuff. Again, good news considering what you initially feared, what initially went through your mind as a Jet fan, and I'm sure the Jets themselves, right? When you see Fields go down, you see him limp off, you see him get carted off, I'm sure there's initial fear as well for those players, the coaching staff, just the unknown. So day-to-day, couple days here, heal up, not his big toe, so dislocated, of course, on the right foot, and hopefully gets back out there very soon because Fields in this offense continues to grow, continue to learn, needs all the reps he can get here. So that's the Justin Fields stuff. Moving on to actually what took place on the field today at New York Jets training camp. Tyrod Taylor, of course, stepping in for Justin Fields, had a very productive practice, had a nice day, and they were still able to get some good takeaways from an offensive perspective. Glenn mentioned it, of course, Tyrod more than capable of stepping in and running the offense here. A couple highlights from team drills. Had a really nice pass to Garrett Wilson, back shoulder ball down the field against Sauce Gardner. So, of course, those two always going at it. Sauce is going to win some battles. Garrett always wins some battles. We get these battles for the next 6 years. So Garrett won that one today. Nice ball from Tyrod. Brandon Smith was another guy I'll get to a little bit more here in detail in a second. But he had a nice day today, and one of his highlights came from a nice ball from Tyrod Taylor, about 25 yards or so downfield, tight coverage, tight window throw, fitted in. So Tyrod today, a couple throws, stretched the field a bit, a couple nice accuracy-wise with the back shoulder ball to Garrett when good coverage against Sauce, and then the tight window, tight coverage to Brandon Smith. So Tyrod came out, made a couple nice plays. That was really it, of course, for the quarterbacks. Not a ton to take away, not a ton of highlights there, just a couple notes from that. Of course, the big story being the Fields' health. Moving on now to some of the skill positions, the rest of the positions. Braylon Allen, another nice day today. Had a few nice runs. Early on here, you're just seeing, and I talked about it in yesterday's show, of course, Braylon Allen, one of the highlights of practice yesterday, one of the biggest performers of practice yesterday, just his ability early on here in training camp, early on in this offense, early on in year number 2 here as he gets set, hopefully, for a productive year 2 with this New York Jets team. That ability to hit the hole, downhill running style, that physical running style, good vision, hit the hole, and get to another level. We saw that yesterday. You saw that a little bit again today. So a really nice positive. And that's even without the pads on. I think you're truly going to see, because without the pads, it's tough to see, really gauge O-line, D-line, and the run game as a whole. I think you're really going to see Braylon Allen and what this Jets run game could be, the potential, once the pads come on, because that's when things get physical. That's when these guys can really, you kind of can get the gauge of, breaking tackles, making guys miss, right? Because it's tackling, more physical, all that stuff. But early on, without pads, there's still a noticeable production there from Braylon Allen, which is a positive sight. Of course, that 1-2 punch with him and Brees is a big piece to what this team can do this year in 2025. As for the wide receivers, Garrett, keeps making plays. So that's typical for Garrett Wilson. But Brandon Smith is the name that I wanted to focus on a little bit here, because he had a good practice today, and Brandon Smith quietly here has had a nice couple of months. We talked about him a bit during OTAs and minicamp. He had a good spring, and quietly today went out there and made a couple nice plays. Of course, the highlight being the ball that he caught in tight coverage delivered from Tyrod. Good day for Brandon Smith. And we mentioned this wide receiver room. It's going to be a story just about every single practice because of all the question marks and the competition. Right, who emerges behind Garrett Wilson? You have Josh Reynolds, you have Alan Lazard, you have Tyler Johnson, you have Arian Smith, Malachi Corley, Xavier Gibson. Pritchett, of course, UDFA. Can he find a role in special teams? And you got to insert Brandon Smith in that category as well as kind of one of those outside receivers here that with a good summer, a good training camp, good joint practice, good preseason here, followed by what was a nice spring, is a name to look for. If he can maybe play a role or find a spot on this 53-man roster, find a spot in this very questionable, but at the same time crowded wide receiver room where you have a lot of guys, but you really don't know where everyone's going to exactly fit in. So early on here in camp, nice day from him, one of the underrated receivers. Tyler Johnson yesterday made some nice plays. So you're seeing some of those under the radar guys step up. Pritchett as well. Arian Smith, the rookie. And not so much those are roster bubble guys. Brandon Smith's more of a roster bubble. Tyler Johnson, Arian Smith, they'll be on this team. But just players emerging outside of Garrett Wilson and even Josh Reynolds, who seems to be the front runner there for wide receiver too. It's everybody beyond that point. So those are some of the big takeaways there. Nothing really notable from O-line. D-line, Clemens, Cisco combined for an almost sack on Fields prior to the injury. Glenn yesterday spoke very highly of Clemens. This is a guy that, who knows, with better coaching, more accountability, can he be a guy that this coaching staff gets more out of? Who knows? He did have a pressure yesterday, and then today, in probably a real game, would have, combined for a sack there with Cisco as well. This staff values Clemens right now. I still don't buy into it. I still not buying the Michael Clemens stock, but that was the big takeaway there. Will McDonald also had a couple nice plays today. Really fired up for what Will McDonald can do this year. Putting on size, of course, hopefully even becoming better against the run, still having that power, still having that speed, that bend off the edge as a pass rusher for this team that we saw last year out of him, where he tallied, of course, 10 and a half sacks and a big year number 2 jump. Looking forward to what he can do. And today he did a couple good things for this New York Jets defense. Quincy Williams had a pass breakup on Ruckert. So Sherwood and Quincy are just so good. That linebacker duo is exciting. So good day for Quincy Williams. Some secondary guys. Brandon Stevens was one of the highlights today, was one of the top performers today in practice. Really strong day for him. Glenn talked about him as he was really happy from what he saw from him today. Obviously, one of the more, we talk about it a lot, the questionable free agent signings, the amount of money they gave him, and the performance and what he was doing in Baltimore. The ball skills are the big issue. Really poor year last year. You're kind of questioning how, right, year one in training camp, it's crazy. Brandon Stevens is one of these players where you would think the way we view him right now, you would feel like he was a player going into year 3 with the team where this is like his last chance to make a jump or his last chance to show what he's worth. But that's not the case. He just signed a contract a couple months ago in free agency, and it already feels like, just from the fan base perspective, he's on the hot seat a bit, right? They drafted A.Z. Thomas. If Stevens has early season struggles, do you see A.Z. Thomas go out there and replace him? All those different things that have been talked about. He's one of the more polarizing and controversial players right now on this New York Jets team, one of the more controversial signings on this New York Jets team in free agency. But he had a good day, and you want to see a good training camp. You want to see improved ball skills. You want to see a good training camp. Yesterday, of course, he got beat by Garrett Wilson. That was the ball in 7v7s where, Fields put it up in a perfect spot. Garrett went up and got it. That chemistry from Ohio State rekindling on that play. Of course, the clip all over social media that Jeff fans have I'm sure seen by now. Stevens was a part of that in the wrong way of getting mossed, but today he bounced back and he had a nice day. And you want to see good practices from Stevens. You want to see what he was able to do today more consistently going into the regular season to give you a little bit more confidence than where we are right now with him. Had a pass breakup against Arian Smith. Michael Carter was also in coverage on that play. And he also had really nice coverage on Garrett. It was down the sideline and kind of stride for stride with Garrett, ran him out of bounds a bit. Like, he was with him all the way, had him blanketed in coverage. Really nice job. We talk about, I said this yesterday, I'll say it again. He's going to be against Garrett. When they face the Giants in joint practice, he's going to get opportunities against neighbors. Stevens is going to be out there. He's going to be against some top receivers. He's going to really have to prove himself. He's really going to have a lot of good opportunities to make some plays against really good receivers, Garrett being one of them every single day. And we saw that today. So that was Brandon Stevens. Nice bounce back after the play yesterday that, of course, he was the victim of on the Garrett Wilson Moss. He did have a pass breakup yesterday on a blitz, so that was a positive. It was like a 50-50 day. Today was strong for him, so really going to see a continued strong camp from Stevens. Sauce had a pass breakup against Xavier Gibson. Jarek Bernard Converse also had a couple nice plays today. JBC, always somebody, training camp to look for. And him and Stiggers kind of battling it out for that final cornerback spot on this roster. Andre Sisco, of course, had the pressure early on in practice. Special teams wise, to wrap things up before we get to some sound, special teams wise, not a great day. Harrison Mevis and Caden Davis both missed kicks from 40 plus yards. So that competition's, kicked off here. I'm interested to see how long this goes until Glenn mentioned he wants to see consistency. That's the main thing. And Banjo, Glenn, Westhoff actually is going to be joining the Jets this year, shortly here in this summer, with the team. So that'll be pretty cool. But I'm interested to see with these special teams battles, specifically kicker, how long of a leash they give Mevis and Davis, because neither of these guys have kicked in an NFL game. And I'm curious if the struggles continue. And I know it's only day 2, and today's the first day we actually got reports of kicking happening. So really day 1 from that standpoint of noticeable struggles where they both are missing kicks. My point is just looking down the road and projecting a bit. I am curious if how long of a leash the Jets would give both of these guys if they're continuing to miss kicks in training camp, and then those missed kicks continue during the preseason games. I am curious if that would be a position where the New York Jets would kind of break apart their young under 30 label and go out and bring somebody in as a kicker that is a veteran, been there, done that. That's one thing I'm curious, because Davis and Mevis, neither of them have kicked before. If they're both struggling, still 2 weeks from now, that might be something the Jets will have to figure out, because you can't go into the season with 2 guys that are incapable of making kicks. And I'm not trying to overreact. It's day number 2, but it's something to keep an eye on, because special teams it is. Kick returner, punt returner, the 2, punt battles between Kai Kroger and Austin McNamara, and Harrison Mevis and Caden Davis as well. No, it's not the sexy topic to talk about. It's not offense. It's not defense. It's not that, but it's important. And you look at how much it affected the Jets last year. They got to get that figured out. All right, so I want to move on now to some sound. Glenn met the media. AVT spoke. Brandon Stevens spoke. Josh Reynolds also had some comments on Aaron Smith. So wanted to play this here before we wrap things up today on the podcast. Glenn spoke to the media. Of course, a lot of it was the field stuff, but since we got the update on that, I wanted to play this on Glenn, on Jermaine Johnson, his timetable, and the outlook on him here as we sit in training camp.
Listen, we want to bring him in at the right time, and we don't want to rush that player in, and we have a plan for him. And that's something that between me, Zuff, Mooj, and himself that we'll continue to talk about. Listen, I told him it's not about week 1. It's not about week 2. It's about the longevity of his career. And we want to make sure that we do a good job and make sure we do that with him. And I tell it to every player, that's coming back from an injury. We have a plan for him. We want to make sure we follow protocol to make sure that plan works.
So that was Glenn on Jermaine Johnson and the process that they're taking. All right, both sides on the same page here. Smart approach to take, ease him back into it. No need to rush him back for practices and re-aggravate something. He's a key piece of this team. Ease him back into things and hopefully get Jermaine Johnson fully back up to speed relatively early in the season, where maybe first week, 2-3 weeks, easing him back into it, not, playing the total number of snaps that he'll play, like snap count, all that stuff. And then you get to week 4, get to week 5, and that's where you can really start to see a healthy Jermaine, a fully 100% worked back into it Jermaine Johnson out there for this team, making an impact alongside Will McDonald, because we all talked about Jermaine Johnson, right? A year ago, last year, it was a big breakout season. And then the Achilles happens. And now it's bouncing back off the Achilles. You still want to see that breakout season. So that long-term mindset is certainly the right way to approach it. Glenn also had some other things to say. He called AVT a great player and hinted at hoping to get an extension done at some point. So we talked about this a couple times. I talked about this in AVT's player preview that I did on Monday. The Jets are going to have a decision to make. AVT, John Simpson, AVT playing on his 5th-year option, John Simpson in the 2nd year of the 2-year deal he signed last offseason. Both of them are going to hit the open market this offseason. Do they extend both of them? Do they extend one of them? I always ventured to think that they would probably extend Simpson, and maybe AVT would be the odd man out, but there is still that world where both of them are extended, and I kind of predicted that the next extension would maybe be John Simpson, but maybe it's going to be AVT. Maybe both of these are going to happen. It feels like AVT and Simpson could be your middle of the season extensions, the next 2 guys to get extended for this team. That's been a topic of conversation among Jet fans. We've talked about it a little bit on this channel, of course, since the Garrett Wilson Sauce extension. Who's next in line? Those are those 2 players. It's AVT, it's John Simpson. It's keeping this starting 5 offensive line that should be a big piece for this Jets team this year intact for years to come. Simpson in his prime, AVT as well. If he could stay healthy, we all know what he can bring to the table. Has stayed healthy last year and had a productive year. So that was a kind of a interesting note there. Extension could be coming soon. Maybe something before the season, maybe something during the season. I'd keep an eye on him and John Simpson as the next 2 guys to get locked up. Glenn excited to see what Brandon Stevens can do. He's excited. I was happy with his performance today. Glenn has stood by Stevens' side this whole time. Basically, really feels like the vibe you get from this coaching staff is, he's talked about, he has a lot to work on, but they really believe that they can get more out of him, and he can be a really nice piece for this team. So we'll see. But it was a good day today for Stevens. Glenn talked about that. As for Elijah Vera Tucker, he spoke on his expectations for the offensive line this season. Here was AVT.
Yeah, man, it's great, especially being here, going on my 5th year now here with the Jets. To have a solid O-line like this, and with the type of guys we have in this room, it's a true great feeling, especially with the type of coach we have in Steve, and the other guys as well. I think we all come in with the right mindset. You got guys like Membu over there, the right side, Olu, two first-round tackles, and then, Tip in the middle, John on the other side. I think when you add all those guys together, it could be something special.
He laid it out perfectly. Ideally, you have your 2 bookend tackles in Armand Membu and Olu. You have Joe Tippmann, who I believe is set up here entering year number 3 for a very, very big season. No, I don't think Josh Myers is going to beat him out in training camp. I've said that many times. John Simpson coming off a career year. AVT healthy. That's the biggest thing. We know what he can do. Those 5 guys with this identity of being a nasty physical team, winning in the trenches, running the football, you got to get excited for what this offensive line can do this year. And you have a top 10, top 12, top 7 offensive line in football. This team's going to be able to win games. You look around the league. You have a good offensive line, you win football games, especially when you want to build an identity like the New York Jets. And I just always say it. It's so refreshing to have a training camp where we're talking about an offensive line where all 5 starters are in place. There's no questions. There's none of that. We know what we're getting. So many years entering training camp, it's 3 of the 5 positions on the offensive line you are unknowns. It's not the case this year, and that's nice. AVT also talked a little bit about the contract extensions and his possibility of staying. Talked about that his agent's handling that. So that's the typical answer, but did say he'd like to be here long term and would like to be a part of the turnaround for this team. And I also thought this was very noteworthy. He said how he feels very healthy and really up to speed this time of year compared to the last 2 seasons, because he had a healthy offseason, right? The last 2 off seasons, he was recovering from the injuries, whether it was the triceps injury he suffered in 2022 or the Achilles he suffered in 2023. Both of those, it took most of the offseason for him to recover. So this offseason, really for the first time since his rookie year, which was 2021, was the first offseason that it was normal for him. And I think that is noteworthy that he's feeling good here entering camp, coming off of no injuries, right? Played 15 of his 17 games last year. So that was the big takeaways from AVT's presser. Brandon Stevens also spoke, talked about Glenn and why that's a big reason he's a New York Jet.
Yeah, I mean, what more can you ask for? You know what I mean? Being a corner. That's part of the reason, one of the reasons why I came here, you know, to learn from guys like AG, you know, Coach Byer, Coach Chris, you know, guys that have been in my shoes, that have succeeded in this league, and, you know, have something to give to the game, you know. So it's been great. You know, they've been coaching their tails off, you know, since I first got here, you know, and I think it's definitely going to pay off in the long run.
I think that's a sentiment amongst a lot of these corners. Excitement to learn and work from Aaron Glenn, former corner, of course, himself. And I think just the flip side, we talked about Stevens earlier, so I don't want to fully repeat this, but Glenn getting more out of these corners, you have to have somewhat of confidence in him because he played the position. And hopefully Stevens is one of those guys that can benefit from Glenn. And a good day of practice, keep building, have a good training camp, and hopefully it leads to a bounce-back season. Josh Reynolds also spoke. One final clip here. Thought he had some interesting comments, the veteran, on the rookie Arian Smith.
He takes a lot of stuff in. You know, he's a good student, you know, and he transfers it to the field. And so it's kind of that's good for rookies, you know, because a lot of them it's hard to transfer it to the field when from the locker room or from the classroom and stuff. And so he's done a great job doing that.
Lots of belief around the Jets building in Arian Smith, and see how it plays out. But we all know the track star speed. The speed is there. The deep ball threat, all that stuff, the vertical threat, that is there. It's more so instead of just, and I think early on there's a good chance the Jets are going to have the, certain packages for Arian Smith, vertical threat, need a deep play, need a big play, want to beat somebody over the top with speed. Arian Smith's going to be out there, but it's also refining everything else, the catching, the route running, physicality, all those different things. So that was Reynolds there. And that's it. Another episode down. Crazy day. Crazy day. It really is. I'll tell you, it feels like, I don't know why. It just feels like it was just a crazy day. I don't really know how to describe it. The field stuff completely threw you for a spin this morning for a Jet fan. And it was about an hour of just sitting on the edge of your seat. And you're just sitting there and thinking, it's July 24th. It's day 2 of training camp, and we're already here. So thankfully, the Fields injury is not what many of us Jet fans thought it potentially could have been. Worst case scenario. Obviously, in a perfect world, he doesn't miss any time, but day-to-day, dislocated toe on the right foot. So hopefully he'll be back here sooner rather than later as he continues to build chemistry, learn this offense. Every rep for him is important this summer. So let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Your thoughts on the Fields injury. What was your reaction? Where do you stand with all that? Your thoughts on any other your takeaways from Jets training camp day number 2 today. Can't wait to be out there tomorrow. Looking forward to it. I'll be out there, so I'll have my in-person takeaways, what I gathered with my own 2 eyes. So it should be a great day out at One Jets Drive. So stay tuned for the in-person takeaway recap episode tomorrow. And of course, Saturday as well, I'll be in attendance for practice. So exciting for that coming up here. So appreciate your support as always. Until next time, JETS, Jets.